Hello there! Welcome to the F-Stop Enthusiast V-Logs. My name is Rory and I'll be your host for this series. In this series of vlogs, you'll be following me as I go from a complete photography amateur to hopefully somewhere near a professional level. I know that's quite a lot to ask and it's incredibly unlikely, but hey, you gotta try, right? A little bit of background information. I'm a second year digital media production student at the Arts University of Bournemouth. I live in Dorset on the south coast of the UK. It's a beautiful part of the country. And one of the great things about living in this area is it's a fantastic place for photography. You've got city life, you've got the countryside, you've got the seaside, a little bit of everything. Now, before we get started, I'm just going to sort out a couple of issues. I'm using equipment that is a lot more expensive and high-end than a lot of amateur photographers are going to be using. The primary camera I'm going to be using is the Canon 5D Mark II, which is a fantastic full-frame 35mm sensor camera. I'm going to be using a selection of lenses, both my own and those belonging to the university. This particular camera belongs to the university, as does the one that you're looking at me through, the Canon 600D. Hopefully though, I'm going to be getting my own camera very soon. Now in this video, I'm going to start off slow and let's go through 5 reasons why you should buy a DSLR over a compact camera. I have nothing against compact cameras. They're fantastic little solutions. They fit in pockets, in handbags, in side satchels. They're great for holiday work. They're great for being out and about, or just for events, going to parties and stuff. And to be honest, they're actually getting really sophisticated. We're having 12 plus megapixel little cameras like this. This is my mum's. I wouldn't buy a pink camera. Well, I might. I suppose it's kind of red, but I really don't care. However, when you compare a small camera like this with a much larger one like this, there's going to have to be some difference in quality, right? This is going to be aimed at the amateur to enthusiast level photographer, quite possibly student, or maybe just someone who wants to give it a go themselves. So even though I'm using quite an expensive camera, all the techniques and stuff I'm going to try and learn will generally be accessible to everyone. Now we've got all that sorted out, let's get started. Number 1. Controls. Generally speaking, with small compact cameras, you're given a great selection of automatic features that allow you to get a really nice quality image without having to think too much about it. But with a DSLR, you get far more controls. Now, I'm no expert as to what half of the things on this top dial mean, but there's a whole range of settings. Most importantly, you're going to be able to adjust your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed. These 3 are going to contribute to the quality of your image. Generally speaking, your ISO controls the gain on your image. The shutter speed controls how long the shutter is open for on the camera when it takes a picture, and the aperture allows you to influence how wide your aperture on your camera is going to be, so how much light is going to get inside the camera. Reason number 2, large sensors. Another thing that DSLRs have over small compact cameras is the size of the sensor inside. Inside a DSLR you'll find the sensor. Now DSLR stands for Digital Single Lens Reflector. This basically works so that you have a viewfinder on top which you look into, and on the inside of the camera body you have a mirror. Now I'm not going to touch this because this camera doesn't belong to mine, but the mirror basically reflects what you're looking at up through the viewfinder to control what you're seeing. But underneath the mirror, when you take a picture, is the sensor. Now this is what makes it so much better than compact cameras, because these are much larger. On this particular model, the Canon 5D Mark II, it is a full-frame 35mm sensor. This is the same size as 35mm film cameras from back when your parents were around. Not implying that your parents, aren't still photographers. That's possibly what their first camera was, a 35mm film camera. What's so great about having such a large frame sensor is you're just going to get a much higher resolution and quality image. You're going to have more pixels on a larger sensor, meaning you can work in much lower light. You're going to get much better colour depth and image clarity, which separates you from just being a guy on the street with a small camera going, "Oh look, pretty pictures of stuff that I can't really understand what it is, but I'm taking pictures anyway." Reason number 3. Affordable. Now I know it's going to sound kind of crazy saying that a high-end camera like a DSLR is affordable, but really when you compare it to your other options when you go into this sort of level, it is kind of affordable. Now, if you're not going to buy a DSLR like this one, your alternative is either buying a compact or a bridge, or maybe one of these, an old school 35mm camera. Now, I'm going to start by saying right now that 35mm cameras are fantastic. A lot of my friends who do photography use these, and you get some fantastic images. But unfortunately, they are not cheap to run. Granted, these things are incredibly cheap. You can get a decent one for about £20 off eBay these days. But developing film is where it really costs. Buying reels of film actually makes you a better photographer, because you generally learn pretty quickly that you can't just go around taking photos like, "Oh yes, I am taking loads of... oh, I'm out of film, damn." This doesn't make them ideal for people who don't quite know what they're doing photography, like myself. Perhaps the only downside with buying a DSLR or a 35mm camera is you're instantly going to get all those hipsters who are just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're using a DSLR again. It's like so mainstream. Check out my 35mm film camera." Shut up! Nobody cares! If you're buying a DSLR and you treat it well, your body's going to last a long time. Reason number 4, lenses! Another great reason with having a DSLR over a compact camera is the fact that you can change the lenses. Now if you look at most compact cameras, they're just going to have a single small lensy. The image quality is well dictated by how good the lens is, and I'm not saying they're bad on these, but they certainly don't stand up to some of the options you have out there. Lenses are going to be your biggest investment with photography. Now what you can do is go and buy the same brand lenses as the camera you bought, so like this Canon EF 50mm, or you can spend your money on a second-hand lens. Second-hand lenses can be really difficult to choose, but generally speaking, if you know kind of what you're looking for and get some good advice, you can get some real bargains. For example, this is a Carl Zeiss planar 50mm, which is a very nice lens. It's a really old model, but this one only cost me £129 because it's second-hand. Reason number 5, flexibility. When you're wanting to take photos in a variety of different conditions or different situations, having a compact camera is really good for being on the go, but they generally are not flexible. They're going to have very limited ability in low light, in harsh weather conditions, fast-moving images. They're just not cut out for that job. Whereas with a DSLR, you get a whole range of manual settings, as I mentioned before, that allow you to take control of your scenario. Due to the generally larger sensor size on these sort of cameras, they work really well in low light. Because of the larger frame size and because of the width of the aperture of the lens you're using, which is generally going to be much wider on the manual lenses that you can buy with DSLRs, you can capture way more light. Additionally, a lot of DSLRs do video these days. Video isn't going to be that important if you're just interested in photography, but it does open up a whole new creative avenue if you're interested in expanding, and it also adds to your camera resale value. Additionally, under flexibility, when you shoot on a decent quality DSLR, it's going to give you an extra codec form called RAW. It's probably not called a codec, but I work in video, so I don't know if it's called that or not. Actually, I think it's called a format. Let's just call it a format, shall we? And if you've shot in RAW, you can use software like Adobe Camera Raw or Photoshop to actually change the white balance and all the settings of your photo as if you're there on the day. Obviously, it's not going to be the same level of quality and it's not going to be quite as good, but generally speaking, it gives you a whole extra range of control, not only on the camera, but also on the computer when you're producing your images. Well, that's all for this week's episode. I'm sure you've heard quite enough of me wittering on about cameras for a short while. Tune in next time for the F-Stop Enthusiast, and we'll be talking more about lenses and about individual camera settings, and see if I can actually take decent pictures outside instead of just standing in front of a camera and talking about them. Please check out my Facebook page on the link below, and I'll be seeing more of you guys later.